Now, there was something else we had discussed earlier in a marketing organization, how events can be siloed in many cases. I think a lot goes back to the KPIs. What are the KPIs for most event people out there? At least in my experience, most of the KPIs are focused on butts in seats, or like what's the biggest email list of registrations you could come up with. There is the satisfaction survey. Hardly any people fill that out. Now, the question is, if the KPIs of an event team are more focused on how many more people can you get in here versus last year, we got 20% more. Awesome. Let's celebrate that. And by the way, here's the email list. Tell the BDRs to go and start calling them. Versus
And can you do Reaper? That would be also another one that they'd probably get thrown in there as well.
Absolutely. So you got that. Now, on the other side, the KPIs of the marketing org, the CMO, are very different from these, right? The CMO's job is revenue. Like, how am I going to get you more quality leads? And they have to map to that. The CRO is always battling the CMO. You're not giving me good enough leads. So the point is, if we can map the event, as you said earlier, the objectives of the event have to be very clear. And I think, what are you mapping from your objectives to the KPIs of the CMO and the CRO? And then your event will not get those budget cuts, will become more strategic. Everybody will flow in, and it'll make more sense because it'll be part of the big picture, and you'll be able to the ROI
and the
factor.
journey, right?
Yeah.
We have to remember, as an event, we're only one moment in time in that customer journey, and if we lose sight of that, then that's where the whole model breaks down. We were joking about this before, but when we talk about marketing and attribution, it's like saying you decided to marry your spouse 30 days after one particular dinner, and it was only that dinner and nothing else mattered. That's crazy. We know that's not true. So we have to think about that from a customer journey perspective and understand what's the pre-journey, what's the post-journey, and every customer's journey is also going to be different. So how do we create seamless opportunities for prospective customers or even existing customers to continue dialogue with us to drive results, because customers can be prospects as well, right?
Yeah, land and expand, I think, is the biggest strategy people have always used. Land a customer, and then if you give them value, you can continue expanding inside that organization. In most of these cases, especially when I talk about enterprise and upper mid-market, there's a lot of space to grow. So you can become a real partner with them and hopefully grow with them.
My previous life, our largest event was our largest pipeline driver of the year, for sure. But the amount of prospects that were at the event were very low. So that was all through customer expansion.
In terms of technology now, so certainly events are a business where it's a lot of time and effort and money that is spent, right? Lots of hours, sometimes brute force hours, lots of same monotonous tasks over and over again, things we've done 100 times before. Why can't we automate that? Like, when it comes to technology, what are some of the things you've seen in the recent past and or might be using in the near future that you feel will really help events to deliver more, and in some cases for same budgets, but also maybe on the other side, deploy some of those financial resources to a better use?
Obviously, it's early days for us within the industry in AI usage, which it's coming. And if any of us think that it's not, that it's like saying when the internet first came out, oh, that's not going to impact me and my job. Of course it did. So I think I'm personally really excited about the efficiencies that AI can create for us. That's why I'm excited to see what you have all built here with HiveGPT. But I think what happens in events is we're used to building the plane and flying the plane at the same time. But once that plan lands, it doesn't matter. We don't finish building it. So, we've got it on the ground. We don't have to finish it. And then we start the process over and over again. I think if we just take a step back and said, okay, what can we do, and invest the time and the effort up front, and it might feel very labor intensive and very painful, but if we invest the time, the streamlined activities will be significant. But I think we're often so busy running that we don't take that step back to identify what are those things that we can streamline, and then how can we do it permanently versus it being a Band-Aid solution.
No, I think that's a very valid point, because in many cases, as you said, we build the airplane while it's flying, and then we land it, and then we go build another one. Yeah. But that's how events are. Like, I used to run events globally for my team in Microsoft, and there would be events happening all over the world. I'll be traveling sometimes 2 weeks out of 4 to 10 different countries in a month. But it were all disjoint. There was no one way to pull all that together. content, and we will try our best to push content out there so that it's at least one voice. But then I understand they have to localize, personalize for the local audience. Makes sense. 70-30-ish. Why not?
Yeah.
But then when it came to the outcomes of the event, I was lucky if I got an email list, it was good. But then on the other side, it was never like, why did this particular account move or not? So I think having like a view of all your events that are happening in the world, as you were just saying earlier, having a view of everything that's going on, and then it's more of a permanent framework that you're using for everything. And these are just triggers you pull and push, right? So then multiple events happening all across the world with the same framework. So you have to rebuild that plane every time, right? And then bringing all the data from all of those multiple events into one place. So you have one view of the world, and you can see, okay, these things really work, and they work worldwide. These things are very specific to certain geographies. And this is what really helped, to move the needle forward for this account. Right?
That's the holy grail of insights, right? We talk about data and we talk about insights all the time, but most organizations can't answer the question of how many events, especially large enterprise, right? How many events do they have? How much do they spend on them? Who comes to them? And how do they perform? Most organizations can't. And you just think about COVID. I honestly thought, and I've seen in some cases it changing, that would be a huge catalyst to be able to answer those questions, because how many organizations scrambled when everything had to be canceled and they had no idea what even existed? I mean, it was painful for me in my previous role, and I know it was painful for a lot of my peers, but it's that same mentality that we've had, as we've talked about, as there's silos that happen within marketing, certainly at the large enterprise level. So it's all about breaking down the silos and thinking about the end goal and then working backwards.
Agree. And I think you're right, because if there is a collective framework, first of all, across all of them, if the KPIs are mapped together, because at the end of the day, we all have to be on the same team running towards the same goal. If my KPI is so disjoint from yours, I understand there has to be a step-by-step thing, but we all have to be running towards that one goal, right? So I think that is something which I'm really hoping that events, again, have a bigger seat on the table and a more strategic and stronger voice on the decision-making table than they have had previously. Again, the talk around chief event officer and so forth. I think there is more of that happening. I'm seeing it across various parts of the industry where they're understanding what more can events do other than just generate email lists and phone lists. So I'm hoping 2024 will be one of those years where we are able to bring some of those, map those KPIs together in some way or form.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've talked about this, event professionals need to think about the business of events versus the events business, two distinctly different things. But I also think event professionals need to take the ownership within their own organizations to break down the marketing silos. We've got the digital signals in marketing, and then we've got the real life signals, and the two never come together, but it's one customer and it's one customer journey, or multiple customers, because those different touch points are touching the customer. But if someone downloads a white paper from your website, they get a lead score, and it's, oh, look, it's, this person's progressing through the process that we want them to. That same customer could go to 3 sessions at your event on something that they don't own from a product perspective, but we don't even capture that intent data. And that's way more valuable than somebody downloading a white paper. So I think event marketers need to take the ownership within their marketing organizations to break down the silos themselves, certainly from a data perspective. I think from a content perspective, those have been for the most part broken down, but this data insights and really educate our own organizations on the value of events in the customer journey. And I think that excites me. I think that creates a whole lot of new opportunities for us as an industry.
Absolutely. Again, going back to the point of taking events from being a cost center to actually being a revenue generator and clear influence on revenue, if everything is mapped together from a KPI perspective. Nicola, this was an absolutely amazing conversation. Looking forward to continuing these conversations with you, hopefully into the near future as well.